What if I could say that the world has nothing that I want? Like with a pure heart, with an honest assessment, what if I could say, what if we as Christians could say that in all honesty, in all truth, the world simply has nothing that I want, nothing that will satisfy, nothing that will make my heart complete, nothing that my heart desires, nothing that my heart looks for, longs for. What if we could honestly say that the world has nothing that we want? The problem for me is, and what the Psalms have hit me over the head with this morning is, I don't know if I can honestly say that. I want to say that. It is my goal to say that. But in my heart of hearts, there are things in this world that draw my heart ever near through its siren songs, that draws my heart ever near as if it has what it is that will make me whole. One of the things I love about the Psalms is how stinking honest they are about their struggles and about the truth forward, about the way forward, about the path and the journey forward. This morning I was reading and now I'm reflecting on Psalm 73. And Psalm 73 begins the third book of the Psalms with this powerful reflection on, is God enough? Is God able to satisfy? This reflection on, what if we could say that the world has nothing that we want? Verse 1 of Psalm 73 begins this way. Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. Now, I almost read it like that because as you get going, I'm not saying that that's not a declaration that he believes in, but it begins with this almost like sarcasm. Why? Because he struggles with that truth that he just said. That surely God is good to Israel, that surely God is good to those who are pure in heart. And the struggle becomes palpable right off in verse 2. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant. What they had, I longed for. I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. Have you ever looked around at those that seem to do everything the wrong way, and yet they get everything that you desire? Prosperity, security. Verse 4, he continues, he says, they have no struggles, or so it seems. No, their bodies are healthy and strong. Have you ever looked around at people who were not struggling with persistent ailments, or did not have a diagnosis that you are struggling with, or that your loved ones are struggling with, and yet you look at their lives and it seems like they're producing nothing but evil? He says, it looks like they have no struggles and their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from common human burdens. Have you ever looked around and felt like, why is it that everyone that doesn't follow Jesus just seems to be less burdened than me, more happy than me? He says they are not plagued by human ills. They seem free from stress, free from the burden of obedience. Almost as if when Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, that we look around at those of us not yoked by Jesus and say, well, they seem to be pretty light on their feet. He then starts to talk about the arrogance and how those that are evil with pride flaunt this carefree life filled with wickedness, yet that keeps accomplishing more and more prosperity. And in verse 11, he says this. I mean, these ones, the arrogant ones, they say, how would God know? We'll do everything through deception. I mean, how would God even know? Does the Most High know anything? They mock you, God. Verse 12. This is what the wicked are like. Always free of care, they go on amassing wealth. And then he says an incredibly honest statement in verse 13. Surely in vain I have kept my heart pure, sacrificed all of the things that could get me what I want. For what? Chastised my body to keep it away from the things that are impure, that God has commanded not to do. And for what? He says, and I have washed my hands in innocence, but in vain? All day long I have been afflicted, and every morning brings new punishments. If I had spoken out like that, I would have betrayed your children. When I tried to understand all of this, what do I desire when I look at the wicked ones? They seem to have it easier to me. Has my purity been a pursuit of folly? He says, it troubled me deeply. And then I love this in verse 17, there's a shift. He says, this troubled me deeply until I entered the sanctuary of God. Until I entered a posture of worship. Until I drew near to the presence of God, and then I understand. In verse 21, he says this. He says, when my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you, Lord. I was raging because what they had, I thought I wanted, because I assumed that if I had the prosperity, if I had the health, if I had the stress-free life, then I would be made whole. Verse 23, though, he says, yet I'm always with you. You hold me by my right hand. Notice the shift to the gift of God's presence. You guide me with your counsel. And afterward, you will take me into your glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth, listen to this line, and earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. He is my portion forever. And verse 28 ends with this, but as for me, it is good to be near God. What if we could say that the world has nothing that I desire? That the world has nothing to satisfy our hearts? How would it change our Christian witness? Because a lot of the times we are seduced by what the world is offering. And so we grasp for power in political leaders. We grasp for security through certain levels of legislation. We grasp for comfort through all kinds of pursuits of wealth, even if it borders along the lines of shady or dishonest or even deceptive. Why? Because we have become convinced that the world has something that can satisfy our souls. The tension is real, and that's why I love Psalm 73. But the truth that Psalm 73 ends on is this. This world has nothing to satisfy your soul besides the presence of God in it. And He is walking with us, hand in hand, guiding us, counseling us, and drawing us ever near to Him, because this is the truth. The desires of our heart will never be satisfied until we drink deep of the presence of God. This week, I challenge you to become more aware of the desires that your heart are pushing you towards and the actions that they produce. And bring those to the Lord and ask Him to replace those desires with His presence. I love you guys. Have a good week.